brief. Just we run 24/7, 365, and we deal with a whole range of customers, throughout the state and throughout our stations and bus systems. And we have a great group of employees, and particularly in our police department, it's often unsung and unappreciated. All of humanity comes through from all walks of life through our stations, and we deal with all sorts of situations, sometimes tragic and sad, and sometimes things work out, but it certainly reflects well on the professionalism and the training that Chief Trusillo and the force that we have here really are prepared and trained to do the right thing. But still, on a human interest level, it's great if you're saving a life from somebody who by Narcan deployment. That's a life saved, but it's certainly very special when it's a young baby, and the actions that were taken, I think, are indicative of what our officers are prepared to do every day. But once in a while, when it gets a positive news story out of it, it certainly is a source of pride, certainly hopefully for them and their families, and certainly for our police force and for our employees here. So with that, I'll let
Good morning, my name is Michael Flanger. I'm a sergeant with the New Jersey Transit Police Department.
Timothy Gagan, I'm a K-9 officer with New Jersey Transit Police.
Could you guys spell your names? Sorry about that.
Absolutely. Mine's going to be Geogheghan.
And mine's going to be Filandro.
You could just start off with kind of a play-by-play of what happened. What did you see when you got there? What was going on?
Yes, sir. So we're at the Trenton Transit Center at our Trenton Transit facility, and we're monitoring traffic flow on our Wallenberg Avenue concourse when a private charter pulled up. The private charter stopped in front of the transportation center. An individual came running off the bus with his child's unresponsive baby, and Officer Gagan and I, as well as the other officers on scene, determined that obviously it was a life priority issue. We determined that the baby was unconscious and unresponsive, possibly from an airway obstruction. So we began doing back blows and chest thrusts to try and remove the obstruction. When we determined that the baby still was not breathing, Officer Gagan and myself got in Officer Gagan's car and began CPR while en route to the hospital, recognizing that we didn't have time to wait for an ambulance to respond out. And thankfully, while en route to the hospital, we were able to get the baby breathing again.
How did he get off that bus? Tell me your first encounter with this guy. He must have been
very frantic. It was I believe the child's father. So he was obviously holding on, yelling, screaming, incredibly frantic, looking for help, looking for some assistance, and actually kind of came right out, right off the bus, right
into our arms for the most part.
Basically right into all the officers. Yeah.
So like he said, the sergeant grabbed the baby and started doing some back blows, and I was kind of just trying to maintain the airway and watch to see what's going on with the kid. When you can kind of see the kid's status going downhill a little bit, where he started to turn a little bit more blue, a little bit more gray, and that's when the sergeant, we tried to get him down on the ground to perform CPR. Still turning gray, we saw that wasn't really working, and it was just determined that it was easier to put the kid in the car. My car was right outside where the bus was, so it was easier to just put him in the car, get to the hospital. By the time another officer came out with one of our first aid bags, or by the time the ambulance got there, the hospital so close at that hour with no traffic, it easier and quicker to get to the hospital than stand by and wait, especially while the kid wasn't breathing on the ground.
We were able to do CPR en route to the hospital, and glad it worked out.
Family, you have the baby in your arms, you're performing life-saving measures, the baby starts to turn blue. What's running through your mind at that moment? And then now, as we now know the baby is okay, when the baby started to come to, what was your reaction then?
Initially, obviously, we wanted to make sure it was a positive outcome for the baby. What's running through our mind is just
what I'm going to do next if
step
A doesn't work.
Just try to get this baby breathing.
Be?
Just try to get the baby breathing again, and get its heart beating again. And when I think en route to the hospital, I think on the body camera you can kind of hear the baby start to cry a little bit and breathe again. And I think Officer Gagan and I both had a
Huge sigh of relief
Huge
at that
sigh of
point,
relief,
yeah.
at that point, when we realized, the measures that we took were successful.
Have you ever had to do something like this before? Is this the first time this ever happened? How were you able to keep your composure in that moment?
We
CPR, no.
Yeah.
My prior experience, I was an EMT for, I couldn't even tell you, 12, 14 years. So that kind of played a role in knowing what to do, what comes next, and then just what's gonna happen if it takes time for the ambulance to get there, and the play-by-play of that.
Same, yeah. We've performed CPR on individuals in throughout our career. Some have had great outcomes, some unfortunately have not. So, but we had a lot of training and experience in doing that.
What was the problem? Did you guys find out what?
Unfortunately, I don't know if the sergeant followed up. Usually, it's kind of hard to get back to the hospital, and then all like HIPAA laws, they won't talk about outcomes or anything of medical nature, unfortunately. But I don't.
Yeah, we didn't get a follow up. We just know that when we left the hospital, the baby was responsive and being treated by the hospital staff.
So you haven't spoken with the family at all?
No.
It's
No.
usually what happens in the police, EMS, first responder realm. You usually have like the adrenaline dump of everything going on, the response, the emergency, you get them to the hospital, and unfortunately that's usually the end of it, unless you know somebody that works at the hospital or someone can make a phone call for you, but just go on your day and answer the next call afterwards.
2 questions. I don't know if you guys are dads.
I guess, I have 2 daughters. Yep, I have
Okay,
2
so,
daughters.
and as a dad, as a person, it must bring you a lot of relief and pride to have a happy ending when it involves a child.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, I have 2 daughters, and just that portion of that going through your head also making sure, it's a child, you really want to have a successful outcome. Make sure everything works out well.
Do you really start thinking about your own children when you're in a situation like this?
In that particular situation, no, not, obviously.
The
during
baby was the
incident,
first
right.
thing
Yeah, the
on my
baby
mind.
just.
Getting to the hospital, getting him safe to the hospital, getting the baby safe. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously we're driving a little quicker than the speed limit says, but getting him and the baby there safely was at least my first thought during the whole process.
How long did it take to get there?
I couldn't even tell you.
Probably 4 minutes.
Not even
3 minutes or
2
so,
minutes maybe.
yeah.
It's Capital Health is super close to the hospital or to the Trenton Transit Center.
Yeah, the only thing that's going through our head is just try to, obviously get this baby breathing again and, hopefully solve whatever the problem was.
So when they handed the child over, can you just-
Unresponsive, unconscious, unresponsive. When we grabbed it, it actually kind of flopped into us. So that's why we realized there was something wrong with their airway, began the back blows and chest thrusts, and then like Officer Gagan said, we tried to put the baby on the ground to begin steps of CPR when we recognized it still wasn't breathing. I think when you can see again when we try to pick the baby up again, it's just completely unresponsive and just not breathing. And then we were able to just get it over to the car real quick to get it in and start heading to the hospital.
How do you guys feel?
I don't want to play it off and say it's another day in my job, but it's almost like just another call. This is something we didn't ask for. It's just the outcome of what happened. Something happened in front of us. We didn't even hesitate about doing what needed to be done and answer the call. And
Just glad it was a positive outcome.
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out well.
Now people are going to call you heroes. How do you feel about that?
I'm not.
No.
This guy is.
No. Just we're fortunate that we're very well trained, and Officer Gagan and I have been police officers for a long time,
Quite some time.
now. So we're very fortunate that our training and experience aided us in this situation.
How much service do each of you have?
So I've been a police officer for almost 17 years.
With Transit about 8 years, and I was with another small town prior to Transit.
11 years with transit, and I worked it
Was your canine with you?
She is not with me today.
No, was she?
Oh, she was with me, yes. Yeah, she was in the back of the car. There's a video where I checked on her afterwards, just to make sure she was okay. She was.
What's her name?
Mira?
Mira?
Yeah.
What do we know about the family? Where they were coming from, where they're at now? What do we know about them?
To be honest, not much. We really didn't get much information out of the family. Obviously, the situation itself was very intense for them. One of our other officers was able to immediately get them in a patrol car also and follow us behind over to the hospital. But we didn't really have an opportunity to speak with them at all, obviously, when we got the baby to the hospital. Then medical staff took over and they needed to speak with the family and try and get some information from them. So we didn't have an opportunity to do any follow-up.
Maybe it's a question for you. I don't know if speak step to the podium if so, but was this a bus full of asylum seekers from Texas?
Yes, as far as I know, there are asylum seekers. Sometimes instead of going into New York, they'll have the bus will discharge at Trenton or Newark or Secaucus, and then they'll transfer, and they have tickets, and then they'll go on. Some may stay locally if they have some family connections. Otherwise, they will go into New York, and that was where the bus was coming from Texas. Yeah.
So it is fair to say that was a migrant bus?
I would, yes, yes.
Okay. And was there, because I know in the video, obviously they were speaking Spanish, was there, a language barrier there? Do you guys speak Spanish? Were you able to put two and two together pretty quickly because it was so frantic?
I think just because of the situation, number one, we were able to kind of decipher what was going on. One of the other officers on scene is Spanish speaking and was able to kind of just decipher that the parents were saying, the baby's not breathing. And so that's when we obviously took over and we're able to get it to the hospital.
So the bus comes up from Texas and that's its last stop in Trenton?
Coming up from El Paso or wherever, they're charter buses, and they usually have a chaperone with the people on the bus, and they arrange, if they don't go directly into New York, if they put them in one of our stations, they then have tickets for them to go into New York.
Gotcha, okay.
And do we know if the family is still here in the New York area, or is this was about a week ago?
Yeah, I would say the officers and the chief and I were talking about, my wife's a trauma surgeon, and so no one praises us in our family, right? If you're a trauma surgeon, they can't wait to get the heck out of the hospital. Last thing they do is come back and say, thank you, Dr. Corbett. Same thing for a train, you take a train, you pay your fare. When you get off, you don't say, let me just, send a quick text to Kevin, thank him for a great trip. I mean, people go on their lives, and that's you don't do it for the psychic reward, but it is certainly rewarding when it's somebody young, when you save a young life.
And it's 3-month-old, correct? I think it originally said 3-year-old. I just want to clarify the age.
I believe it was three
The
year.
child was 3-year-old.
I believe, yeah, around 3 years old.
Yeah.
Take that gas, and the situation's completely different. What did you feel when you heard the gas?
Just wanted to make sure the airway stayed open and it didn't aspirate on, like heaven forbid if it was choking, it didn't suck that piece of blockage back into its throat. So even though you hear the baby breathe, you still don't know, like you're not still out of danger, you're still in the zone of you gotta get them to the hospital, but you can breathe a little bit knowing that the baby does have some air moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when while doing chest compressions, Officer Gagan was driving. I was kind of thinking like, hey, this isn't working. We're gonna need to switch it up, or we need to get to the hospital a little quicker. And as soon as we heard the first kind of cry, a little cry or sigh, it was just kind of like, oh man, I'm glad that it's breathing now. Now we just, like Officer Gagan said, have to maintain it and make sure it stays breathing. But as soon as he started to breathe, it was kind of a huge weight off your shoulders.
So you guys were in the front seat and the kid was in the back?
Oh,
No, the kid was in the passenger seat with the sergeant while I was driving.
Yeah, Officer Gagan was driving and I was doing compressions in the passenger seat.
Oh,
Yep,
wow,
yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Dog was in the back.
Oh,
Yeah, the dog was in the
Yeah,
back.
dog was in the
So you had a
back.
packed car.
Yeah.
Packed car, very packed, yeah.
So you had him in your lap, kind of?
I did, yes. I was kind of holding him kind of like this and just kind of doing compressions with kind of up against me in the seat.
So there's a risk of whatever's obstructing coming back and reblocking the airway.
We weren't sure what the obstruction was, so we obviously was a big concern of ours, and we weren't able to in the patrol vehicle. We weren't able to flip the baby back over just because of the angle. So we had to obviously keep it, upright, and so the concern would absolutely have been like if the obstruction would come back, but thankfully it didn't, and the baby had a very, very good outcome.
I know we always talk about how seconds matter and time matters in emergencies and situations like this. Maybe talk about just how heightened it might have felt, or how 2 minutes might have felt like longer than that.
I would say that it took, even just driving, very quick drive from Trenton Transit to Capitol, and it felt like forever.
Yeah.
Even though it could have been a minute or so, but.
Yeah, I mean, on our end, I think Officer Gagan and I were kind of holding our breath the entire ride, to the hospital while trying to, get the baby breathing again. So it definitely felt a lot longer than it was.
What's the name of the hospital?
Capital Health Regional?
Yeah.
Regional.
Yeah, okay.
Great job there.
Anything else, guys?
Thank you.